Agriculture, Maritime Transportation, Power and Energy Utilities, and Emergency Response. And our agenda this afternoon begins with the confirmation hearing for Ms. Issa Marie Koki, who is appointed to serve as a member of the Board of Directors for the Port Authority of Guam. At 3 o'clock, we will continue the confirmation hearing with the appointment of Mr. Anthony P. Chargaloff, Jr., who is also appointed to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Port Authority of Guam. And before I call up Ms. Koki, I would like to call up anyone in attendance who is here to testify about her appointment. I'd also like to recognize Senators Will Castro and Regine Biscoli. All right, let's go ahead and start over here on the left with Mr. Ken Leon Guerrero.
My name is Ken Leon Guerrero. I'm with the Guam Citizens for Public Accountability, and I'm here to testify on the appointment of Issa Marie Koki. In preference to my testimony, I bring your attention to this little chart I'm sure you're all familiar with. The recent trust survey that indicates that 87% of the people of Guam have a very low level of trust in government operations, politicians. And the reason I bring this to the forefront is because there have been a number of activities over the years that have shattered the public trust, and it is the responsibility of this body here more so than any other as the people's representatives to help restore that body of trust. And one way you do that is through appointment of people to the board of directors of various agencies of government of Guam who are supposed to represent the interest of the people of Guam. Now, I'm sure you all read today's issue of the Post, specifically the article on the port and the Guam YTK issue, where the general manager refers to the fact that his board will approve actions. Now, when I heard that, my understanding was that he has such confidence that the new members coming onto the board will support actions that he is planning to take, is taking, that are outside of the realm of his authority and responsibility. And that's why, as you know, I don't know Ms. Kiko at all. Now, I met her just now for the very first time. I don't doubt that she has integrity, otherwise she wouldn't hold the position that she has. But I'm concerned about a potential conflict of interest that you as senators need to vet and satisfy to your satisfaction that her employment in the governor's bank, and I say the governor's bank because the governor's family is the majority stockholder, her employment in that institution could be a potential conflict. In other words, the board position, I believe, pays $50 a meeting. They meet once a month. She depends on her livelihood at Bank of Guam. Anybody appointed to these boards is going to be a supporter of the current administration. That's how the political game works. But my concern here is whether or not anybody appointed to this board has a potential conflict of interest, however minute, in view of the issues before the Port Authority Board right now. Because right now we have a rogue general manager, and I say that in the truest sense of the word, because based on his actions at the last board meeting, he does not understand that he reports to the board and reports to the people. He lied to the board and therefore lied to the people about his actions as proven in today's issue of the Post. And there's a very strong liability there that ultimately is going to be paid for by every man, woman, and child if this situation gets any further out of control than it is right now. That's why my hesitation at either supporting or opposing the appointment of Ms. Kiko is neutral. When I say neutral, I am hoping that through the work you do, because we as citizens don't get the opportunity. I can't sit down with her and discuss issues about the port and get answers to my satisfaction. The system isn't set up that way. She's not going to be sitting here and I'm not going to be sitting up there. But you guys are sitting up there. You guys know, you senators know, that we have very serious legal and financial issues at the port. There is a lot of political pressure by well-connected political insiders pushing on the port from all directions in an effort to harvest the golden egg. That golden egg being the taxpayer's pocketbook. And so I urge you, as you do your due diligence vetting these candidates for this board, that you ask questions about this port issue and other potential port issues rather than just rubber stamp, as I have seen many legislatures do with many other board members in the past. We have serious legal, operational, financial challenges. It is my hope that you senators will drill down on those issues with the candidates, both candidates, satisfy yourselves that in this case in particular, my fear of a conflict of interest and the people's fear of a potential conflict of interest. I say we don't know, but you know, she works for the company that's owned by a politician. The risk is there, but I don't know. I've heard good things about her, but I've heard good things about a lot of other people that in the politics that have ended up disappointing the people as well. So in conclusion, I am not opposed to her. I am not supporting her. I am counting on you as the people's representatives to do the due diligence and question the attitudes on these serious topics before the port, because if you are satisfied that the risk of conflict of interest is negligent, then that would be enough for me and the people, especially now that we're aware of situations that are deteriorating financially and legally over at the port. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leangro. Mr. Santos?
Buenas tardes. My name is Francisco Santos, one of the board members for the Port Authority of Guam. It is an honor to be here today, Mr. Chairman, and your committee. I'm here to support the nomination of Ms. Cookie to serve one of the board members for the Port Authority of Guam. I believe working with her as one of the board members, I believe, and I have the trust and confidence that we will work together in moving the port forward and all the activities of the port, especially at present time. So I'm asking Mr. Chairman, you and your committee to please confirm Ms. Cookie to serve as one of the board members for the Port Authority of Guam. Thank you, and since Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Joe Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Joe Bradley. I am, by occupation, Senior Vice President and Chief Economist for Bank of Guam. I previously was Chief Economist for the Government of Guam. I've known Ms. Koki for about 6 years now, and I've worked fairly closely with her for the last 4 years in her capacity as one of the bank's accountants and, in fact, as our assistant controller. And I wish that I could assure Mr. Leon Guerrero that I find nothing but the highest integrity, honesty, and ethics in my work with ISA. Anytime that there is something that doesn't seem quite right to her, she will dig deep into it and find out what's wrong and resolve it. That's been my experience with her. I would also like to say that she is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, but that would make her sound too much like a Boy Scout. And I don't believe she ever has been. She's smart. One of the smartest people I know. She not only thinks things through, she anticipates, and I think that that's crucial. At least in working with me, it's crucial. She's diligent. She does her homework. She finds out whatever she can. She very often goes well above and beyond the call and gets down into the details of everything. She's very hardworking. I've known her to work upwards of 50, 60 hours a week. She's an officer of the bank. The additional hours don't compensate her any further. She's a very quick learner. We had a very unfortunate loss of one of our accountants about 4 years ago, and that one was closely involved in the preparation of our reports to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and we needed immediate replacement. And Issa stepped up to the plate. She learned everything she needed to know very quickly. She not only is responsible for and contributing in the accounting side of that report, but she also proofreads the report to make sure I'm not making any mistakes in the writing of it, which I really do truly appreciate that. She's reliable. I've never seen her shirk any of her responsibilities, and like I say, very often she'll go above and beyond. She's responsible, and I think that a part of that is that she's very serious about her role, not only in the bank, but in the community and in the world at large. She listens very carefully, and I think that's a characteristic that is not common enough in our modern world. Too many of us spend our time staring down into a cell phone instead of listening. I think we can all acknowledge that. But she understands the issues, and if she doesn't understand the issues, she asks questions. And she participates in the decisions that are being made. And this has helped me a lot over the years, and I know that it's helped her coworkers and the bank over the last several years. She's focused in what she does. She is, sometimes I get distracted. I don't think I've ever seen Ms. Koki become distracted. I've said that she's not afraid to make decisions, but what I must also say is she's also not afraid to revisit those decisions if new information becomes available. And I think that's a crucial characteristic of anybody in a leadership position. I first encountered that with the Deputy Director of Commerce back in 1985. And I learned a lot from that experience too. But with that in mind, I urge you, Mr. Chairman, Senators, to confirm Issa to the Board of Directors, the Port Authority of Guam. I think that she will do a very good job, and that she will be reliable and responsible. And I think that if there is even the smell of a conflict of interest, that she will recuse herself. She will not merge her role at the bank with her role at the port. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Mr. Nathan Timanglo.
Chairman Ridgell and other members of the 35th Guam Legislature, thank you for having me this morning, or this afternoon. Sorry, I'm still stuck in the meeting earlier today. Currently, I sit as a serving board member for the Port Authority of Guam. By occupation, I also serve as an EVP and Chief People Officer for Dokuma Pacific, Inc. I'm here to voice my support for Issa Koki to serve as a member of our board. Undoubtedly, she has the work experience, the knowledge, the know-how to contribute as a member. She's one of the youngest vice presidents of the Bank of Guam. She's CPA'd, she's done her time at Deloitte. In terms of her temperament, in terms of her willingness to give back. I'm sure this is a worthy cause that she can devote her time and energy to. And she also personifies what I think people our age should be doing. You know, if they have the background, the experience, the knowledge, they should give back. And I believe the people of Guam and the Port Authority of Guam are well within our, and I don't speak for the rest of the members here, but I think it's a welcome addition to the team, and I look forward to working with her if you so confirm her. And I'd like to thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taimanglo. Mrs. Maria Taitano.
Hafide, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the legislature. My name is Maria Taitano, and I also currently serve at the Port Authority of Guam Board of Directors. I'm here today in support of Isa Koki's nomination to the Port Authority of Guam as well. I don't know her personally, but I'm sure she has what is needed for the board just to be nominated. So again, I'm looking forward. I know she's going to be a great addition to the team. We do definitely need someone as young as Nathan. But I'm here again to ask for your support and to not, for her nomination, confirm her nomination to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Taitano. And if there is no one else here to testify on Mrs. Koki's appointment, I'd like to call up the nominee. Also, I'd like to recognize Senator Therese Terlahi. And you can go ahead and proceed.
Hafide, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Sizos Masi for the opportunity to share my background and experience and how I intend to lend knowledge, perspective, and skills as a board member of the Jose D. Leon Guerrero Commercial Port. Before I begin my testimony, I would like to thank my family, my mom and friends for joining me today, and especially those that provided testimonies in support of my nomination. Sizos Masi. To formally introduce myself, my name is Isa Marie Cruz Koki. I am the only child of Blaze and Marikita Koki. Koki is Hawaiian Japanese. However, my dad was born in Guam and raised in the village of Agana Heights, and my mom is a Cruz from Chalampago. I am 30 years old, unmarried, with no children. I am a certified public accountant and the Vice President Assistant Controller at Bank of Guam. If you look at my resume, you will see that I don't have any shipping or cargo handling operations background. But what I can offer to this agency is my knowledge and expertise in finance and accounting, a fresh perspective, and a willingness to learn new things. As the port embarks on implementing its revenue bond projects, as part of its modernization program and in line with the military buildup, we need to ensure that the key project initiatives justified to the investors in the bond market are met, while management and the hardworking employees of the port keep the wheels turning. I will be that soundboard in the composition of board of directors that ensures checks and balances are present. I will work with management and the finance division to ensure our reports with OPA and the federal government are accurate. I will also ensure that we comply with all regulatory requirements, both at the local and at the federal level. As a CPA, ethics and professional integrity is a must, and I plan to bring that sense of accountability forward to the board. I understand there is a lot at stake with millions of dollars running through the port. As we know, it is the lifeline between us and the rest of the world. It puts majority of the food on our tables and the gas in our cars. I understand this is a huge responsibility being on this board, but I promise you, I will be mindful and objective with the actions and decisions I make with the whole body. I don't have all the answers, so I will be asking a lot of questions, which I guess I'm known for. I hope by asking the questions, it can spark fruitful dialogue. I am committed to working diligently and professionally with the other board members to ensure the port continues to operate effectively and efficiently, that it is well taken care of, and ultimately so are the people of Guam. I am very excited to sit on a Government of Guam board, so this will be my first opportunity as a public servant, and for me, a chance to give back to the island I love. I am also very excited to experience firsthand what it means to be port strong. I humbly ask for your consent for my nomination to the Jose D. Leon Guerrero Commercial Port Board of Directors. Sizos Masi.
Thank you, Ms. Koki. All right, I'd like to ask a few questions now, and let's start out first with the issue that was brought up earlier of the conflict of interest. Do you feel there's any potential for a conflict of interest, and if so, how would you handle it?
So the Bank of Guam, I believe, has deposits, or I'm sorry, the Port Authority has deposits at the bank, and the bank is also the main trustee of the bonds, the revenue bonds. I am not involved with the deposit operations of the bank, nor am I involved with the trust department. However, I understand that perception is key, and I would be willing to recuse myself should the board feel that I pose a conflict. I'll be sure to step out of the room for matters that discuss the bank, again, if they pose a conflict, but I don't believe it will. I'm a CPA. One of the core principles of the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct is objectivity, and another core principle is independence, and I believe I would be able to make decisions with those core principles in mind.
Thank you. Another question is, that's been in the news lately, of course, is the issue with YTK and the decision about YTK. First of all, do you have an opinion on the YTK issue that's currently before the Guam Supreme Court?
Well, my understanding it is, it's with the Supreme Court to determine if the lease is valid or not. I'm not an attorney. I haven't read the lease agreement, and I don't have all the information in front of me to make an informed opinion. But I will work with management and the rest of the board members to make sure that I have all the information, all the pertinent information to make an informed opinion and an informed decision. There's a lot of analysis that I would need to know in order to even inform an opinion on that, both cost and risk analysis, before I would make that.
So no definite opinion on the matter as of right now?
No.
Describe to me what you see your role if confirmed to be a member, and how you would see your role if you were confirmed to be a board member of the port.
So as I mentioned and as I've read, there's a lot of money flowing through the port. We received a $70+ million bond in the bond market, and I want to make sure that all the funds that are allocated to the specific project initiatives are achievable, and so that we can work within our means. The expenditures need to be supported, they need to be tied to a specific initiative, and they make sound business sense. So I plan to bring that level of expertise in accounting and finance and be a contributing member of the board of directors.
All right, and when you hear people talking about the port, what sort of images or issues first come to your mind?
There's a lot of legal issues out there. I know the media and the news does the best job they can to report on it, but you can only, jump to conclusions with it being sensationalized out there. There are a lot of human resource issues with the employees. I think management and the board need to really open the communication lines with the employees. Also, with this whole YTK issue, I think it's good that, we need to know how to not make these mistakes again. There needs to be controls in place. It's good to have a lawyer, a second eye, and all the controls there to mitigate this from ever happening again. So those are some of the concerns that jump out to me when I hear of the Port Authority of Guam.
Are you familiar with the port modernization plan?
I am a little familiar with it, such that there's a number of initiatives, project initiatives out there that are going to be funded by the revenue bond. But I don't know all the details. I promise to jump the learning curve pretty quickly and doing a lot of reading just to get up to speed with a lot of that.
Okay. And finally, the port does have a need to maintain its gantry cranes and on a regularly scheduled basis, and currently there's a 15% surcharge assessed to each container offloaded, and those funds are supposed to go into a restricted account to fund maintenance and acquisition of parts for the gantry cranes. Now, hypothetically speaking, if management asked the board for authorization to use a portion of those funds for a purpose other than what the use of the surcharge was set for, how would you respond?
We need to understand why and where management is coming from. Again, there needs to be a lot of cost and risk analysis associated with that to know why they would want to do that. I wouldn't jump to say no, but I am open to working diligently with the board members to make sure that it's a sound business decision to allow that. But the transfer of funds is transferring of funds from one area to the next is something that would require a lot of oversight. So someone to initiate would have to be a very different person than the person to authorize. So I think having that back and forth discussion with board members and management of the port would be key into even moving forward with that idea.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions. I would like now to also recognize Senator Amanda Shelton, and then of course allow my colleagues the opportunity to ask questions or provide comments, beginning with committee members. So start first with Senator Regine Biscoli.
Sujus Masi, Mr. Chair, and Sujus Masi, Isa, so much for accepting the governor's nomination and for putting yourself out there, and hopefully, your continued service to the people of Guam, but in this capacity. I heard you speak a little bit about, in your testimony and your response to the chairman for some of his questions about checks and balances and oversight. And so I really want to impress upon you the importance of really coming through with that commitment that you've given us today, that if we are able to confirm you that that's something that you're really going to do moving forward. There's a lot of, as you mentioned, there are a lot of challenges at the port, but I think that you have the kind of mindset that can turn those challenges into real opportunities for the people of Guam. So I want to thank you in advance for doing that hard work, and also for paying attention in the ways that you've had mentioned about accurate reporting, regulatory compliance, just overall accountability. So I really want to thank you. I want to thank your family members who are here and all of those who've come to testify and give us some good things to think about. I do have two quick questions. Actually, the chairman asked the question about conflict of interest, so I appreciate your response to that. And I also wanted to just give you an additional opportunity to talk a little bit about your 9 years of experience as a CPA and how you touched on it briefly, but how maybe if you could give us some details of how you can take that experience and use it in your service as a member of the Port Board.
So I've actually worked at Deloitte & Touche as an auditor, and I audited primarily government of Guam agencies, to also include the Port Authority. I moved over to Bank of Guam in 2013, and there I was able to advance within 4 years from a junior level accounting position to the assistant controller position. Currently, I support and lead a team of 23 employees. I oversee the general ledger accounting, the fixed assets, the accounts payable, income tax accounting, and the financial reporting of the bank. And I also am heavily involved with the preparation of the financial reports to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and I'm a key personnel in dealing with the auditors, both the internal and the external. I'm also involved in a lot of projects at the bank. I'm on the Asset Liability Committee as well as the Brand Refresh Committee. I'm spearheading right now. I'm actually the project lead for implementing an ERP, enterprise risk planning system for the bank, which includes oversight on the accounts payable, fixed assets, expense management, and financial reporting solutions. So how all of that and my experience surrounding that I can bring to the port is really going back to the modernization plan. I see that there's funds allocated to invest in IT infrastructure. Specifically in the finance division, I could be that hands-on working board member to provide support, to provide guidance on making sure that the business needs of the port are met. and that it is documented along the way, so we don't have any issues surrounding all this money being poured into a vendor that's not able to solve some of our issues that we're looking for it to solve.
Thank you, Issa. You touched on a few of these in your testimony, but I kind of wanted to talk to you just generally about your priorities for the port, and specifically, you know, the transition report released by the governor's office mentions a plot of land near Route 18 that would be a potential spot for an automobile recycling plant. So I wanted to ask your thoughts about that, and just where that would fall in line with the other priorities that you have for the board. So if you could tell us maybe your top 3 priorities, and if you think that the automobile recycling plant should be in line with some of those priorities.
So you would have to forgive me, I have not read the entire transition report for the Port Authority. The priorities I would have for the port is to really make sure that we plan ahead for any possible payouts for any legal actions that the port is required to pay, while maintaining that the balancing act by staying current on our debt obligations, making sure that the port is not, that it continues to run efficiently and effectively, and that it doesn't or put a damper on the ratepayers or the consumers. Those would be my top 3 priorities. Now with the recycling of automobiles, I think that's important. You know, I'm fairly young, and I believe that we should take care of the island and not use its resources. And I think that's key in that. But again, as to prioritizing, I don't know what all the initiatives are with this administration. I haven't read the full details of the transition report, but that is important to me.
Thank you, Issa. You know, there were a couple of adjectives that Mr. Bradley and others used to describe you: smart, diligent, that you have integrity, that you're hardworking, you're a quick learner, you are inquisitive, that you're a good listener, and that you're focused. And so I really look forward to confirming you, and I hope that you take all of those positive attributes and really pour them into the work that you will be doing on the Port Board. So Sujus Masi again for accepting the governor's nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Therese Terlahi.
Hafaday. Thank you, Chairman. Hafaday, Issa.
Hi.
And thank you to your family and all of those who came to testify. I think your testimony was helpful. You're in a tough position. I think it's, I appreciate your management and your auditing experience. I think that's exactly what the board needs. I think it's a good asset for the board. This board is one of the more technical, well, you've got to be very knowledgeable. So the other thing I guess I want to ask you is, with your current work, are you able to put the time that's going to be necessary to become an expert in maritime industry and in our port operations and what the employees are going through down there, and to read everything that comes your way? Really, because I think there's huge pressure on these boards, huge pressure, and we've all experienced it in different capacities, but the boards, I think, are really where this is key. There's huge pressure because we're all friends. We grew up together, even, you know, the directors are our friends, and there's huge pressure to just not be the obstacle or, you know, somebody who's seen as, you know, somebody told me I'm hard to work with, but I don't know. Just, I want to know if you're able to, being, you know, friends with some of the board members, the director, if you're able to act in that capacity very objectively, and if you're able to, if you're not sure, withstand the pressure of going along and just telling them, you know, I'm not sure, wait until I learn more. For example, in the situation you're in right now, and if, you know, these things are ongoing, you might sit on that board meeting immediately after confirmation and be faced with these huge issues. And so I guess, yeah, so I want to know, what kind of time are you able to put into becoming the expert that I think the people of Guam want you to be, especially under these circumstances at the port?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I'm very committed to reading and learning everything I can about the port. I've actually spent a good amount of time since Lou asked me if I would be interested in being appointed to the port board. And before I even accepted that, you know, I did my research and I read a lot. And it's an ongoing process, like you said. And now, if I would become an expert within 2 weeks, I'm going to say that's possibly not going to happen. But I am not one to go along just for the sake of going along. I do my part, my due diligence, and I ask the right questions before I even speak. And that would be my position as a board member, and what I would take when making decisions.
Yes, I know that you're because of your employment at the Bank of Guam, the conflict's already been raised, right? Whether there's a potential conflict, whether there's a real conflict, and it's been addressed by several people and by yourself. And I temper the potential conflict knowing that actually there's been many boards where family members in the past administration, family members, enterprise members also served on the boards. And so we, the people of Guam, we feel a little uncomfortable maybe, because it's obvious that we just feel a little vulnerable, that there would be pressure on a board member to make a decision a certain way, right? That's what we're worried about. But I do believe that also that some of these appointees are able to withstand that. And I guess so that's what we're going to be deciding, right? If you're one of those who can withstand that type of pressure, or going to just go along, to go along. And we know that, when governors make appointments, and this is for every board member, right? When governors make appointments, they're putting you in there in hopes to get their platform done. But then, legal issues come along and other things come along, and we really need you to go beyond, platform and and really be accountable. So your testimony helps me to believe that you will be accountable. And I guess I don't have anything to say otherwise. In fact, in the capacity that I've known you, and from the testimony of those who know you better than I do, I'm glad to hear that it's consistent. So that's, just bear with us while we're all nervous. I think I just believe that the Port Authority, the legislature in the last term passed a resolution, very strong resolution, to join in the YTK lawsuit. We were not in support of the agreement that had been made under the arbitration. And so we were in support of the port's position at that time. So I am concerned if the port's going to change its position. I'll tell you that right now on the record. And so I, like you, would want to know exactly why and find out everything that's changed since that time. So, yes, I'm going to thank you for your commitment to this. It appears to me you are a person that if you commit to it, you're going to put in hard work. And I've seen you work very hard on different things in different capacities. I think you also, do public service. And so I want to thank you for all of that. And I look forward, and I can see your enthusiasm and your willingness to really learn and get to be like, put in the work that it took you to become a CPA. And that when Ms. Taitano said that we need another young person like Nate, I can see the benefit of this new, fresh, but hardworking approach, right? So you young people just have to, if you think you're right, stand your ground. And because I just feel like some of these boards sometimes it's like, oh, don't worry, this is how we always do it. But that's really where the danger comes in the government, right? It's we're looking for new ways. We're looking for change, more accountability than we've ever had. So I want to thank you for committing to all of that.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. Senator Will Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your affiliation and potential conflict of interest, in addition to those issues that were raised earlier, I'd be remiss if I say they didn't concern me. but out of consideration for the chairman, he asked those questions of due diligence. Lo Paraguahu, given your professional experiences and what you stated for the record, as a matter of public record, it's customarily my nature to give people the benefit of the doubt and allow them the opportunity, and most especially given the code of ethics that governs your credential, that you proceed forth and serve the people well to the best of your ability. But I will challenge you. I will ask, although it's outside of accounting and public financing, I could see, I took notice of the sponsor list. I will challenge you on an issue outside of that, but still, it's a policy issue. Maybe about a month ago, a member of the law enforcement and/or emergency response community shared a firsthand experience of a jurisdictional conflict where this detached Guam Fire Department team was either responding to or conducting an emergency response activity, only to have weapons drawn upon them by members of the military. I think it was Navy or Coast Guard. I could get you the details later. And so my point would be, my challenge to you would be, please keep an open eye and a firm hand on those issues that are fiduciary in nature, but also not just over the accounting and financing, but over those natural resources that are given unto you and held in trust by the people of Guam. So thank you for accepting the nomination to serve. And that would be my question to you. I'll be reaching out for your assistance in that regard, and to the good chairman. So thank you, Ms. Koki, for accepting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Senator Amanda Shelton.
Thank you, Chairman, and hello, Issa. Thank you very much for being here today. I have to say I've known Issa for most of my life, and when I first met her or first knew her, I didn't think she was, I didn't know she was such an academic. When I met her in high school, I knew her only to be fun Issa, but I learned very quickly how serious you are about your work, that you have, a fun side too. But even after college, I remember how ambitious you were, ready to become a CPA, and so I've known you throughout your life, seeing you rise up, and I'm very proud of you, and of course you have my support, and we've been chatting about this position, and I know that you're ready for it. I've been asking you lots of questions, and you have my support, Issa.
Thank you, Senator. I'm proud of you too.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. And if there's no further questions, I'd like to go ahead and conclude this hearing and just say that I thank you as well for testifying before us and answering the hard questions we posed to you. And thank you for your willingness to serve and to accept the nomination as well. If there's no more testimony, we'll go ahead and conclude this hearing, and we will recess until 3 o'clock for the next hearing. Thank you.
This is Wasi.